Welcome to episode 5 of the Senior Mastermind podcast.
Achoo! Sorry
God
about
bless
that.
you.
Sorry about that.
Uh, I'm your host, Bakar Bey, here with founder of Senior Mastermind Group, my brother and brother-in-law, Maurice Bey. What's up, Maurice?
That is me. How are you, sir?
And also here with my sister and serial entrepreneur, mother, just all around boss, Majida Bey. What's up, Majida? How you feeling?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm doing well.
Doing well. Outstanding. Yeah, everybody get you. We got a lively conversation coming up tonight. So for those that's tuned in, go ahead and invite a couple friends if you can. I know I had a buddy, Steve. I've been talking with all week about some of the topics we're gonna touch on tonight. But man, happy Juneteenth, everybody. All right, for those who don't know what Juneteenth is, because I'm not entirely sure of everybody that's on here, but Juneteenth recognizes the last set of people in this country that were finally released or let known that slavery was over. So
I did
slavery was
not know
abolished.
that.
You didn't know Juneteenth? That's what it
I didn't.
represents?
Yo,
It
Trump.
wasn't?
Trump made a comment. I heard on the news. He made a comment. It said, and I'm not quoting him, something to the effect of, "Yo, I did a good thing. Nobody knew anything about Juneteenth until I decided to have this rally." And even though it was funny and it was rude, because a lot of people do know about Juneteenth, when he said it, I'm like, kind of right, because I mean I knew of Juneteenth, but I didn't know that Juneteenth was the celebration of when our people was actually free here. I didn't know that. So he had a point when he said, "Go ahead."
It's when the last group of our people were finally informed in Texas.
Exactly.
In 1865.
I didn't know that,
right?
So he got a point.
And it's been a holiday though since 1980. It's been a holiday recognized since 1980. So again, still relatively new in our collective history. I mean, I'd say the holiday is older than 2/3 of us, right? But I've been thinking about that. So today, in our Juneteenth episode, we wanted to continue our conversation from the last podcast. If you haven't watched it, go check out episode 4. We talk about, the social justice, the riots and everything going on. And today we're going to kind of put an economic spin, as we talked about economics being one of the avenues that we want to focus on as far as transforming. I know as we're live now, we've already shared this, but again, Bakar Bey here with Maurice and Majida, part of the Senior Mastermind Group, collective group of creative entrepreneurs who are here helping to support families and individuals and entrepreneurs to help hold them accountable, build community. So we're just here to offer support, encouragement, accountability, and recognition for those who are looking for it or those who are just trying to build their own businesses, become economically self-determined and independent. So that's who we represent. That's who we are. That's what we're building as a family and as a community, and hoping to, encourage more people, to dive into that journey, and really wanted to show it from our point of view of what it looks like, not just at the super successful point where a lot of people seem to meet entrepreneurs, but like when you're in the dirt, when you're grinding and gritting, trying to figure out, what that looks like. So again, Maurice, Majida, what's going on with you all this week? What's happening with you this week so far? Majida, I'll start with you.
Been a busy week, bro. Just working, burning the candle at both ends. I know that's cliche, but it's been that kind of week. Just putting certain things in place to help.
What are you working on?
Branding, marketing, getting some
Time out. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. You working on what?
branding and marketing.
Man, can I tell you what I thought you said real quick?
I don't know.
You say
Sure.
you say you working on Brandon. I was about to say, who is Brandon?
Stop.
I was about to say, who is Brandon?
I
Get your
ain't
head in
got
the
time
game
for
tonight.
Brandon, bro.
I haven't met him.
Time for Brandon.
Go
Get
ahead.
your
I'm
head in the
sorry.
game, bro. Get your head in the game tonight. I heard branding, so thank you,
Okay,
Majida.
okay.
I understood.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
know you're working on a website. You got some programs and things coming up. Talk about it a little bit.
I really just I'm focusing on educating. You know, I realized that there's a lot of information that people not so much need the information, they need insight. And so collaborating with various
Mhm.
individuals to help give insight into different areas of health, wealth, economics, just at different aspects of life, you know, things that we, you know, might cross our mind, but we don't really pay a whole lot of attention to or don't give a lot of intention to. And so
Mhm.
just want to bring that to people's awareness, you know, bring more awareness to those topics and subjects through collaborating with people who have more knowledge about it than I do. You know, like it really isn't about me knowing a lot. I know what I know. I know who knows what I don't know. That's
That's
all I
it.
need to know.
That's it.
And so leveraging those relationships to help just bring more insight to individuals who are looking for that type of information. So yeah,
Uh,
it's been exciting just making connections across the country. You know, I've been able to connect with individuals as far as California. I got a young lady I'm doing an event with in about a week or so from Missouri.
mhm. Okay.
So exciting, yeah. And I've connected with them through different associations. Um, so that's something that has over the past year been, you know, more at the forefront of my mind, like really building intentional associations. We talked about this, I guess, some time ago.
In the
We
first
talked about,
podcast, go check it out.
yeah. Uh,
Associations matter.
yeah, authentic attraction, you know, the idea of just being yourself, but finding other people who are on similar journeys, who
Mhm.
want similar things in life, and connecting with them to see how you all can help each other to move forward. So that's been my focus over the past few months, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, we looking forward to hearing and learning and sharing as much as is what's going on in the journey, man. This is all about again telling our story, our journey, our way. Maurice, what's going on with you? What's happening with you this week, man?
Man, just working on staying focused, man. Um, so many distractions out here. You've heard me say that before. So many other things. When I say distractions, I don't want to come across, you know, like not really talking about distractions. I'm just talking about so many things going on, so many things going on, so many places to put your attention, so many things to focus on, so many things
Mm-hmm.
to concentrate on. And so I just been doing my best, man, to stay focused and
Mm-hmm.
to not be drug around so much. You know, I've
Mm-hmm.
said before that you need to be the type of you don't want to be the type of person that is controlled emotionally by conditions or by what's happening. And right
Right.
now, man, the way the world is, things are moving so fast, things are happening so fast, things are unfolding so fast, things are changing so fast that it's so easy, in my opinion, to be focused on other things. And so I just been doing my best to just stay focused on the goal. You know, I had goals that I wanted to achieve ever since the beginning of this year. And right now, for me, well, for everybody, it's the middle of 2020. You know, it just seems like
True.
just a few months ago that it was like, all right, we're just getting started. You know what I mean? We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're
Right.
gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And you know, certain things I've made strides in, but you know,
You started the
I have,
podcast.
yeah, well, definitely. But I'm not satisfied at all. I'm not
Absolutely.
satisfied. I'm not content. I'm not on track as far as I'm concerned. And so basically, man, I ain't even gonna lie. I don't really want to talk about it too much. Not even in our mastermind yet. I'm just not ready for it yet. But I mean, I kind of tore up the script. I didn't really tear up the script, but I kind of tore up the script. You know how Jim Rohn says the first 6 years of his adulthood, he wound up economically broke. And then the next six
Mm-hmm.
years, he just tore up the script. And 6 years later, he wound up economically rich. So I didn't
Mm.
really tear up the script, but I kind of did tear up the script. It's like, you know, I got to figure out, I got to figure this out, man. I got a lot of things going on in my life with work. You know, I'm not really secure. I don't feel secure with work. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like, yo, all of my energy and effort needs to be
we got
all of,
excited.
All of my
Like, you
energy and
scoring
effort
now?
needs to be focused on accomplishing the goals and the things that I'm trying to accomplish for this year. I still got 6 months left. And with the plan that I got laid out, I still got time to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. So I just been working hard on staying focused on what I got to do, keeping my head down, trying not to look at too many of the distractions. That's basically where it's been at for me.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. And no, I can 100% relate to that. I know that we all had plans for what this year, was going to look like. And um, when I started the year, I definitely had a plan and agenda. And as soon as I had written my plan out, uh, I lost my employment, which is about a month and a half before like the COVID and everything, or 2 months before COVID hit. So I've been like, I done tore up the script and been, had to come up with a new script and keeping my head down, focused on that. So I 100% can relate to where you are and recognizing that, man, sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board to figure out how to operate, in a new environment and towards your goals. At the end of the day, what I found out is the plan doesn't change, right? Your goals will remain the same. You may have to come up with more creative ways in order to accomplish them. It may not happen in the time frame that you want, but if you're giving your best to it each and every day, right? I guess this is where I'm naturally an encouragement. If you're giving your best to it each and every day, you'll get there, right? Like Jim Rohn, he didn't plan those 6 years down, right? But the 6 years beyond that, he probably exceeded his wildest dreams. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep. He said he did. That's what he said. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I said, he probably exceeded his wildest dreams. And so, that's one of, my mentors that said, yeah, if you're willing to put 2 years, do what others won't do for 2 years, you'll spend the rest of your life doing what others only dream they would, right? So that's just a foundation of some ideas. And not great to check in with you all. Speaking of, conditions and environment and things and trying to keep your head down. I've had my head down for a couple of months, but this month there've been some really, really attention-grabbing events, from George Floyd to just this week, down in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure if you heard about this, with the police encounter and killing of the man Rayshard Brooks. Y'all heard anything about that?
I have.
And that's a little different case than the George Floyd case. I think universally, globally, it was unanimous, except for maybe those 4 officers that were involved in it. But that George Floyd case was pretty cut and dry. Most people can look at that and see that this wasn't right. But I got a call from a friend earlier this week, one of my old buddies from college, and he was asking, he actually is the one that told me about what's going on in Atlanta with George Floyd.
With
And
Rayshard
Brooks, thank you. Apologize, you definitely don't want to miss saying somebody's name in this day and age, right? But with Rayshard Brooks, and I ended up just having a dialogue throughout the entire week with him. And I don't typically spend a lot of time or energy on it, but because it's so relevant, and that there are people who are really pushing toward, creating reforms and getting legislation passed and things, it's something that I've had to open my ear up and pay a little more attention to. You follow me? Maurice, your mic went out.
I'm back in.
And so, I know initially, with the George Floyd case that it did have an effect on us with the riots and not riots, the protests that turned into riots and some of them in other places. And then there just being this movement all over the country or all over the world as well. And I guess on top of this being Juneteenth, right? Again, it's supposed to be a recognition and celebration of emancipation of our people in this country. The question that came to mind this week was, how does it feel being Black in America? And I want you to respond to that the way you would respond to that. In this day and age, in 2020, with all that's going on, we've got COVID crisis, we've got and everybody's dealing with economic issues, with education, challenges, with business and all kinds of challenges with the global pandemic. But specifically for, people of a certain demographic, for people from my background, and for those who call themselves Black, in America, or connect or associated with that experience. Like, what is that to you? What does that mean in 2020?
Can I touch on that?
Yes, that's why I asked the question.
Well, it's kind of hard for me to answer that question, and you already know why.
Well, tell our audience.
Yeah. I am. I most certainly am. Absolutely. And then of course I'll give Margita a chance to chime in as well. You know, as far as, you know, how does it feel to be Black in America?
Mm-hmm.
First things first. I can't answer that because I don't refer to myself as Black. That's the first thing. I think all of us, I speak for all of us on this podcast, we don't refer to people by a color. We don't refer to people by Black, and we don't refer to people by white as well. We treat referring people, and again, I speak for everybody on this podcast when I say this, we refer to people in the same sense as like a Chinese or an Indian or a Russian or a German. We refer, in other words, we believe in referring to people by their nationality. We don't believe in referring to people by those terms, Black and white. There's a lot with that. Yeah, Mom, I said it, Mom. That's a little inside joke between me and my mom right there, right? So that's the first thing. Now, I want to answer your question, because while I don't refer to myself as Black, I do see we are the same people. The people that refer to themselves as Black, and me and us on this podcast, I do believe we are the same people. I just don't identify with calling myself Black. So how does it feel to be what I would call, we use the term Asiatic. How does it feel to be an Asiatic in America? You know, if you're asking me personally, you know, I'm proud to be who I am. I also want to touch on this as well, though. I think if you was to ask any person that does refer to themselves as Black, I think they would also tell you the same thing. I think they would tell you that they are very proud to be that. I think that they would say to you that regardless of what's happening, you know, they would say, I'm proud to be me. You know, I think our people have a history, Asiatic people have a history of taking whatever you give us and turn it into something, beautiful in some cases, turn it into some cases where other people want to idolize in some cases, turn it into something that we want to idolize, you know. So just getting away from whether, you know, an individual should or shouldn't be referring to themselves as Black, that's not really the direction I want to go in. I do want to say we are the same people, and I feel proud about being me. And I would assume that those people that refer to themselves as Black, if you ask them, they would say, I'm just as proud as anything in the world.
Okay. And I bring the question up because
it's a great question.
I know, again, as individuals who may not refer to ourselves as Black, but are very much associated, affiliated, and in community with those, you know, that do, with our brothers and sisters who do all over the world, a part of the you know, the African diasporic, you know, family and community of people, the Asiatic family of people, as we refer. I recognize that we align ourselves in certain ways, you know, with certain organizations, with certain coalitions that we tend to, as we know, many nationalities and groups of people do, they focus on issues that pertain to them, that they build communally through them. You know, you look at the Jewish community, you look at, you know, the Chinese, Asian, other communities. Oh, we're getting some mixed reactions today. I'm loving it.
You talking? Are you looking at the chat? Is that what I'm not even looking at the chat. Yeah, I'm not even looking at it.
Getting some mixed reactions today, which is great. That communities oftentimes start by building, you know, from the family unit to the, you know, state, national, whatever level. And I'm bringing this up because I know that, you know, we looking at each other as the same people. We lean toward building something for ourselves, which, if you, again, looking at the anniversary of Juneteenth, is something that we're really still in the process of doing here in America as a community. When y'all agree to that, we're still really in the process of figuring out and building our own, whereas every other nation, you know, on the planet has, you know, laws, systems, and other things in place that particularly help to benefit and develop those people and their agendas, their goals, their cultures, right?
Yep.
I may be making some assumptions. You're definitely welcome to push back. But
No,
Majida,
you're right.
I pose a question to you. For you, being, you know, especially a woman in this dynamic, what is it like for you in America? You know, what has that experience been like for you? Or what is it like for you in 2020?
I don't really know how to answer that. Like, I wouldn't say that I feel to be completely honest, like not much has changed for me personally
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple months. However, my mindset has changed somewhat. My determination to pursue certain things has definitely increased. And speaking really as a mother, I think that's what influences me more
Mm.
than anything else is what I'm able to do and leave for the next generation. And not so much leave to them, but leave in them. And so what
Mm.
example am I setting for my girls? I'm sure I've touched on this before, but that's really why I do what I do. It's to set an example for them. And then as I connect with other individuals, connect with other women, connect with other mothers, I want to build a community of women who are achieving the things that they want to achieve for their families, creating a community of self-sufficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I haven't gotten in touch with my feelings. I mean, I guess over the last couple months, you know, there's been mixed emotions and things like that have come up. So I'm not going to deny that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've said before, how do I channel that energy to something positive? How do I take that emotion, that feeling, to create something that can have lasting change? Like at the end of the day, for me, it's like we can complain, we can demand, but what can we do? Like I don't feel the necessity to go to someone else or go outside of myself or my community to get the things that it is that I need for my community. I believe that it's for us to create. It's for us to take ownership of. I don't
Right.
expect else to do that. That's like expecting somebody else to take care of my children. Like that ain't their responsibility. It's my
Right.
responsibility. And I feel the same way about our community. It's our responsibility to take care of ourselves. Stop asking for. I just posted this quote that I heard on a podcast from E.T. and Associates. You know, asking for justice from those who seek to oppress you is like asking a poisonous snake not to bite. You know, like like stop asking. Create what it
Right.
is that you know. We've been taught we are creators and make our own. You can create whatever it
Absolutely.
is that you want, regardless of who you are. If you have that belief, you know, and that's essentially where it starts from. There are people who've become successful who have made different strides because they had the belief that they could. And so I don't think that's dependent on how you identify in this country. And I'm not going to say that there aren't barriers, but we used to barriers. Like resilience is in our DNA. So like that's what we do. We see the barrier, we see the hurdle, and we get over it. You know, that's how you have Arthur Ashes and Serena Williams and Jackie Robinson and Martin Luther King. Like that's how you have people like that because they see the barriers and they go through them. You know, so that's the way I feel. I'm not comparing myself to any of those people. You know, some of them are definitely historic and timeless. But I feel like I have that same mindset that if I want something, I gotta create it, and I'm not gonna allow anybody to prevent me from doing that. As long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, I'm gonna position myself to be able to do what I need to do to have a better future for my family. and for my community. So,
which leads me to a question I would love to ask to both of y'all.
Go ahead.
Kind of piggybacking on what you just now said, Majida, and then Bakar, of course, you can continue on with whatever direction you want to go in with this. Just going off of what you said just now, Majida, something you mentioned just now, is someone trying to oppress us? I think this is a great time to kind of give our 2 cents on this. Does the boogeyman exist?
You know what? I want to start with that one.
Does the boogeyman really exist?
That's a great question, and I think it's one of those questions that kind of came up in my conversations with my friend earlier this week. Now, he is European American, gentleman, so American of European descent. May have or has referred to himself as white at some point in his life, but he's scientific, right? Very pragmatic, very focused on like what's the problem and how do we get to solving it. At the same time, you got to have to understand the dynamic. And so when he brought up the case of Rayshard Brooks to me this week, he was asking, or he was frustrated. He was frustrated because he saw this case being lumped in with, sort of the larger conversation of Black Lives Matter and social injustice, when to him, based on certain things that occurred, it looked like that the officers may have been justified in certain parts of their actions, right? And like I said, it was messy. I think that was something that Trevor Noah spoke about this week. He said it was messy, right? And it was a good messy case because that's part of the challenges, right? What are the conditions that lead to there seemingly being this boogeyman? Well, here's some of the answers that I gave. Yeah. Sure. All right, so some of the answers that I gave him were the systems of racial discrimination and these structures exist. That's the first thing. So is there a boogeyman? Yes, these systems do exist, all right? And the systems were created and established long before any of us that are still living, all right? So just like we have, the arts and we have the music, we have science and technologies, right, that have developed based on what people have done generations and centuries before us, we still have a system that's relatively young and very much unique within the fabric of our human society, where we've had, we're dealing with a group of people who've had everything taken away from them, and they're trying to figure out who they are and how to how to live like everybody else has learned to live over generations, over millennia. I mean, so there's a lot of catching up for those who call themselves, Black, African American, et cetera, in this country. And there are forces, and that's why I talk about the influences and forces of how this country was set up. They do exist. Now, for every system, right, has its agents, right? And I don't want to get in and give a dissertation or anything, but to answer your question, does a boogeyman exist? I'd say the boogeyman exists in form of the systems and structures that were created, and now we're working to undo the unjust and inequitable systems that were created. They still exist today in how in the behaviors, attitudes, the ignorance or willful ignorance of their existence, right? Like if you don't know something exists, again, you're gonna treat it like the boogeyman, like, oh no, that's made up, that's not, it doesn't happen. You can't honestly address it or begin to affect or to change it. But if you can make it something real, make it something honest, or I'm sorry, make it, I guess, tangible in this sense. And I think that was one of the challenges that my friend was dealing with was, how do we fight racism when we don't know where to pinpoint it? Like, where are the racist policies? Where are the racist people? Where are the, if we could just identify those things, we could remove them, right? Well, racism is not that simple, right? So that's part of my answer to that. Is there a boogeyman? Yes. Problem is, it's seen as the boogeyman. It's not like something that needs to be corrected in the minds of many.
Totally goes against all of my principles and beliefs.
Speak on it.
So I actually wanted to give Margita a chance to. I had to give her a chance to. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to speak on that, but I will. I wrote down what I wanted to say because
Okay.
I'll continue with it in a second.
This is a boogeyman. The question you asked was, is someone trying to oppress us?
Mm-hmm.
The easy answer, no. There isn't someone. There isn't like there is no boogeyman. There is no one individual who's like, I want, not one individual who has enough power to enforce it. Not one individual. But I kind of, listening to Bakar, what racism is, or systemic racism, or institutionalized racism, it's like COVID-19. Like, you can't see it. You can't. It's like, it's a psychological, and not COVID per se, but racism is woven into the very fabric of this country, and
Absolutely.
so normal. Like, it's normal for those people that benefit from it, right? And so it's not necessarily intentional. I shared this earlier this week. The idea that we had an economy at one point that was built on free labor.
Mm-hmm.
Like it or love it,
we still have an economy that's built on free labor.
Exactly. So
they was asking me to do work. They was asking me to do work this past week that I ain't gonna get paid for at my job. I told them hashtag no free work. That's what I told them.
That's right.
But to that point though, if that was the foundation of this society, the foundation of this economy, that a lot of people work, a few people get to live a life of luxury, and then with the Emancipation Proclamation, with Juneteenth, that system, is kind of pulled, that rug is pulled from underneath people. We're like, all right, you can't have free labor anymore. All right, we're gonna maintain free labor or minimum wages as much as possible, because psychologically, I don't expect to do no work. And it's not just people of European descent. It's woven into the psychology of our people as well. The idea that, like, I should be able to live a life of luxury and not have to work hard for it. I should be able to do the things I want to do and that's what I feel has to change, So in terms of that being a boogeyman per se, our minds have to change. We need to embrace hard work. I read in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, one of the parables in that book. And one of the guys was speaking, and he said that work was his best friend. And so we see work, unfortunately, as something to be minimized. Like, I don't want to work that hard. Most people, right? That's in general, I'm speaking generally, like, I don't want to work that hard. And the idea, even when we're talking about community and economic development and all of that, that's too much work. So it's easier, and this might hurt some people's feelings, it's easier to accept a check from your oppressor than it is to create and build something for yourself. It's easier.
Are you saying jobs are oppressors? I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just poking the bear a little bit. Go ahead.
I mean, but the idea that, like, if I don't have to do a lot of work and somebody's gonna give me a check, why would I go out of my way to work hard to build something for myself? It's too much like work. And unfortunately for our people, because of the history we have in this country, like, we want to detach ourselves from that level of work, because our ancestors were slaves, so we shouldn't have to work as hard as they had to work. And that's not necessarily reality, because before slavery, we had to do something to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, put roofs over our head. Like, we weren't expecting some other nation to come in and take care of us. We had to take care of ourselves. And so we need to get back to that same mindset. But as long as we embrace this dependency on somebody else to take care of me, we're going to always subject ourselves to the proverbial boogeyman.
Keyword. And I would definitely like to chime back in and continue on with that, because that kind of touched on you touched on a lot that I would like to address. You know, okay, if you're listening to this right now, just follow our conversation, right? So if you believe that there is the boogeyman, right? We are being oppressed. Everything you spoke on just now, Majida, you weren't speaking about, if you listen closely to what you were saying, what I heard, you wasn't speaking about what's being done to us. You were speaking about what we are doing to ourselves.
What we've been programmed to do.
I got you. I understand that. But Carr mentioned a point a minute ago when he was talking, and you made the point of what has been taken from us, right? Now this I don't want to go too far into this discussion. This is something that's in our teachings, right? But you know, in our teachings, we're taught that it is our actions that put us where we are. And I have even deduced from the books that we study and what we learn that our nationality wasn't taken from us. We did things to cause that to happen. Our teachings say that it was us that was pursuing after somebody else's culture that was the cause of our nationality being taken away. So when I ask the question, is there a boogeyman? Are we being oppressed? I acknowledge that there is a system out there that makes it easier for you to sit at home and collect a check from the state as opposed to go out and get a job. I do understand that, right? But again, I'm kind of like I can't ignore some of the things that you brought out, Majida. You know what I'm saying? Which is essentially personal responsibility. You know what I mean? Yeah. How can I say it? We gotta. I'm just saying we have to look at what we're doing. One more thing I want to touch on as well. Bakar, you talked about making the boogeyman real so that you can deal with him, and that's when I kind of was thinking in my own mind. I'm like, that goes against everything that I believe, and here's why I feel that, and this is just my personal opinion. I feel that goes against everything that I believe. Like, I personally believe that what you think exists. What you believe exists. If you believe in the boogeyman, then I believe that if you believe in the boogeyman, then you are more likely to have an experience to validate that.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense to you. I believe that if you believe in the boogeyman,
I'm gonna do something to you on this one. Go ahead.
Okay.
I like
or
it.
anything else. I believe if you believe in that, then you're more likely to have an experience that validates that. So it kind of goes right back to what I say a lot is, you know, we got to be careful about what we believe. How to get rid of something that you don't want. How to get rid of an unwanted thing. In my opinion, the way to get rid of an unwanted thing, and I'm speaking generally here, in my opinion, the way to get rid of an unwanted thing is not necessarily to push back against it. So we're taught, going back to our teachings again, that tolerance and understanding is better than unwarranted opposition. So that's essentially what I'm saying right now. And I know that a lot of the times, if we believe that boogeyman does exist, that we find ourselves pushing back against that thing. And I believe that when you push back against a thing in that fashion, it's not called the law of repelling. It's called the law of attraction, which means when you look at a thing and you say, I want that, you are attracting it to you. But when you look at a thing and you say, I don't want that, you are still attracting it to you. So how do you get rid of something that you don't want? You know, I would say if we look at the war on drugs, it has only caused more drugs. If we look at the war on poverty, if we look at the war on terrorism, those movements haven't gotten rid of the thing that we're trying to get rid of. They've only emboldened it. And so, you know, am I saying that when you're dealing with unwanted behavior, you should just turn the other cheek and forget about it? I'm not really saying that. What I am saying is that tolerance and understanding is how you eliminate resistance. What I am saying is the next time you find yourself being in an argument with someone, in the middle of the argument, just stop and say, you know what? I'm listening to what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, and you have a right to feel that way. I'm saying if you just stop in the middle of the argument and switch the energy to that type of conversation, the other person that you're arguing with, the resistance will stop in a second, right? So I ain't saying you got to take my word for that or say, well, that's a dumb idea. If somebody doing something to you, that should just tolerate it. It's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying that the way that you get rid of something is by understanding. That's how you get rid of it. And if you don't believe me, like I said, the next time you're in an argument with somebody, in the middle of the argument, just stop and understand them and watch the resistance stop.
Okay.
So if we want to get rid of something, I kind of agree with something Majida was saying, even though she was probably speaking about something different than what I'm thinking about. We got to change the way we think about things, right? Because that same system of quote unquote oppression also gives you tax benefits for buying a home. They also give you tax benefits for starting a business. They also give you tax benefits for having employees. In other words, I learned in sales a long time ago that in sales is not meant to do on the bottom. It's not meant to do on the bottom. My trainer told me, he says sales works, but it's not designed to stay on the bottom. It's designed for you to prosper and be at the top. That's where it works best. America is the same exact way, I would say. So that same system that is oppressing our people is the same system that encourages them to become homeowners and to become business owners, right? And some of us go that way with it, and some of us become, keyword Majida mentioned, subject to the oppression. But if we don't want to be subject to, we got to take some personal responsibility. We got to pay attention to what we're doing and how we bringing that on ourselves. So I do think there are certain things that I, as an individual, do from time to time to bring that negativity, that boogeyman, on myself.
And you guys make some really, really strong and valid points. And I like that some of them are not popular opinion or popular.
Absolutely.
Because in my hair, I can hear people who are, and I'm not gonna agree with you. I'm just gonna bring another perspective to it, right? I don't disagree with you either. Like I said, I think you all both made some great points, and I have my own thoughts and feelings on it. But I think that was part of the conflict and questions that were coming up, is the questions of personal responsibility. It's one thing to believe something, and I think Dave Chappelle has a great quote. He said, "The worst place for Black people to exist is in the imaginations of white people." I love that quote, because recognizing that the reality that we believe in isn't the only reality for people that we exist with, right? And so when we're talking about the state of things here in America, we recognize we got a lot of people who believe a lot of different things about each other, and it influences how we live and how we work and how we effort. We can look at numerous examples. The fact that our people are still fighting for human rights in this country lets us know that, as much as I may believe that all of my rights are granted, the forces that I'm dealing with when I walk out of the door inform me otherwise, right? It's like trying to say, you know what, I'm gonna stop believing in gravity and then walk off a cliff and expect to fly. That makes sense?
Yep.
It doesn't work that way. So there has to be more than just a belief in order to change something, right? There has to be so much more than just a belief. There definitely has to be actions. You know, when we think about the cases of, here's something that I found in common with both George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks. Both of those brothers, here's the personal accountability, we're drunk. Now, that's not saying that we should eliminate drinking, because drinking leads to unfavorable encounters with police, which could, depending on who you are, disproportionately lead to your death. I don't know. this country's tried prohibition at one point in our history, and how did that turn out? They said, you know what, it's better to let them have it than for them to be sneaking around trying to get it, right? Just like what you said, Maurice, that when you push back on something, what do you get?
You get more of it.
You get more of it.
That's how it seems.
That's how it seems, right? So, does that mean that we become more docile to have better encounters with police? Because it's something I'm sure that we've taught our families and our children, or was taught to us growing up, how to deal with police, where certain communities of people maybe haven't had those kind of experiences, right? Right. And those are the type of things that are going on within this country. So there's like the reality that you see and the things that you can control. But what about the things that are out of your control? All right. How would you respond to creating that world that you envision, that you imagine, carrying your identity, but doing that within a world that you have the power to create and influence, but at the same time, there are forces, there are influences that are acting upon you at the same time. How do you reconcile that?
As you're talking, here's what I'm thinking about, and I hope this addresses.
And I hope y'all still with us. I'm sorry, I know that we're getting deep into the conversation. My Jesus brought up some great points about just being economically self-determined. So as far as takeaways, like takeaway that is working toward your own economic self-determination. Maurice brought up a great point about personal accountability. We're talking about, we're the Seer Mastermind group. Sorry to cut you off, but talking about the state of affairs, for Asiatics, African Americans, so-called Black people here in America, and what are the things that we can do in order to create the reality that we want? All right. So back to you, Maurice.
Yep, I'm gonna say something that is probably gonna be pretty unpopular here, but again,
Great.
Exactly. It is just a perspective, and it is just something to consider, because you asked the question just now. How do you deal in an environment? You have the ability to create in an environment. Where's your question again? Say that one more time.
I said, so how do you reconcile, having that power to create the reality that you want, being able to change and shift your mindset and see the world however you wish to see it, at the same time, deal with forces that may see the world differently and see you as part of that world differently than you do, right? It creates that tension or that conflict. It's like saying, oh man, if we all just stop thinking about racism, we won't have racism.
Yeah.
But you kind of got to figure out what racism is so that you can get it out of there, right?
Yeah.
Or you get.
I guess one of those, it's a great question, by the way. It's one of those things I have mixed emotions on, right? So,
That's fine.
So let me, exactly. I know you're totally cool with that. Again, this is just for people to consider, okay? Nobody's going to agree with this. So I kind of look at it like a grocery store, right? I believe that the point that we are supposed to be aspiring to is to look at life kind of like a grocery store. So in a grocery store, you have everything. You have everything that you could use, that you could need to bake any kind of dish that you would want to bake, right? There are things in the grocery store that you eat, that you consume. There are things in the grocery store that you don't consume, especially us that are on this podcast. I mean, we don't eat pork, we don't eat beef, we don't eat chicken, turkey. They carry all of that stuff in the grocery store, yet we don't eat it. So the objective when I go in the grocery store is to go and get what I need to put in my cabinet to create the dishes that I want to create. That's the objective. Mm-hmm. Notice that when I go in the grocery store and I come across something that I don't need, like a piece of pork, and I'm just giving that for an example, a piece of chicken or anything that I don't need. In life, when we deal with things that we don't need or we don't want, we tend to form groups and we tend to push back. But imagine if everything that we saw in the grocery store that we didn't need, we protested against it. Like get the pork out of the store. You know what I'm saying? Get the beef out of the store, man. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I don't give any attention when I'm in the grocery store to the things that I don't need. I give zero attention to it. And now I'm at the point, now watch this, Bakar. This is addressing what you just now said, because what you just now was asking about is, so what, do we just ignore racism? I'm not saying, when I said earlier, you know, do we just tolerate behavior that we don't want in hopes that it's going to go away? That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But here is what I am saying. I don't even see chicken in the grocery store anymore at this point. I don't even see it. I don't see pork. I don't see it. I don't see it because now why do I not see it? Because it's not there.
You're not looking.
Nah, it's there. I don't see it because I'm not looking for it. This just goes back to my point again. In life, you don't always see what's there. You tend to see what you're looking for. This is really, really interesting stuff to me, if you ask me about it. We don't always see what's there. You can something can be right there and you not see it if you're not looking for it. So now, but that's all should also let you know that your brain is so powerful that it can cause you to see something that's not there either. You cannot see something that's there and you can see something that's not there. Does the boogeyman really exist? If you think he does, right? So like I said, going back to the grocery store example, and again, that's not me trying to say that that's a fact. That's just me giving substantiation to why I believe what I believe. That's all that is. It's just my opinion, right? But back to the grocery store thing, you know, we don't, you know, everything has a purpose. I've heard people say before, nothing is universally good and nothing is universally bad. Things are what we think they are, right? So I ask a person, when they say that, before I ask the person, I say, well, what about murder? Is murder wrong universally? They say, no, nothing is wrong or right universally, right? So murder has a place. Murder has a place. Somebody come in your house and rape your family, murder has a use for you. You get what I'm saying? You have use for murder. I mean, think of it as an item in the grocery store. You have use for that item now, right? But if you're not dealing with that, you don't have use for that item. So I don't have use for the cow and the pig, right? But I don't want to, like there are people that have use for cow and pig. Just like there are people that get their house broken into and have the need to murder. So for me to just look at a thing and say it's 100% wrong and it shouldn't be happening, I can't look at anything and get that much of an understanding from it just to say it's wrong and it shouldn't be happening. I don't have that much of an understanding in that thing. And it's the same thing with the grocery store. Right? I don't put any energy at all into the things that's in the grocery store that I don't need, that's bad for my health, right? I don't protest against those things. I just give them no attention. And now I've been not focusing on those things for so long that I literally don't see them when I go in the grocery store, even though they're sitting right there.
Interesting. Very interesting point. And I appreciate the analogy. And recognize that I would say if I were using your same grocery store analogy, you know, I'm the type of person who does see what's in the grocery store. I also see the grocery store separate from the farm or the garden, right? Like, why would I need to go to a grocery store if I can grow what I need on my own land? Not to take it too far, but it's taking that a little further. That you, just like you said, you can see what's there, but you could also perceive what's not there and believe it's real. You could look at these situations again, like George Floyd, like Rayshard Brooks, and you can look at it from every different perspective you want and can find justifications or reasons, if you will, for how they, you know, I guess you can find reasons for how they on both sides, right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily be able to justify it, to say that it's right or wrong per se, but the reality is those things did occur, right? Have you ever imagined, and you know, a couple of questions that I wanted to bring up too, you know, like when were realistic times that we've encountered racism or encountered violence in our own communities?
I was going to ask that same question to you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because that can make it a little more real, a little more tangible.
Yeah.
You know, I can give a little anecdote. Was, you know, I was 7, 8 years old coming home one night, and the neighborhood that we were living in, what people imagine a hood or really poor socioeconomic group. Stray bullet goes through the vehicle, is about that far from my head, right? And I may not have had, I woke up out of the dream at that point that I was safe in my community, in my environment, right? And I experienced violence before that. Somebody tried to steal my bike when I rode around the block once, right? In my own community, somebody else that looked like me, right? So I had an exposure to violence in community as well as outside of my community long before I believed that violence was real or wasn't real, right? So for me it's important to acknowledge, I think it's really important to acknowledge that, one, these things do exist. Like, there is chicken in the grocery store. There is turkey in the grocery store. Whether I see it or not, it's there. Okay.
Not denying that.
And that's part of, when we talk about the state of affairs for our people here in America, we have to acknowledge what's here. Like, what are we tangibly working with to create what we want, right? If I want a grocery store that's Whole Foods, it's going to look a little different than a grocery store that's Aldi's, right? May have some common elements, but Whole Foods ain't Aldi's, ain't Trader Joe's. It's not, Kroger. It's not Publix or whatever you have, Safeway, and all of these different brands and branches. So the world that they're trying to create, it may have some common elements. We're bringing some of the same things to it, but it looks a little different on the inside, right?
And can I just jump in real quick? Because,
please, so you can put some tangible, concrete to this.
So this was something that I heard from, I think it's a quote by Carter G. Woodson. And if I'm wrong, it's Booker T. Washington, one of them. He says, we are the only, I think he used the term, race of people that sends our children to the oppressor to be educated. So if we have a problem with a teacher who isn't embracing our child, or our child said the teacher don't like me, or whatever the case is, what do we have as an alternative? All right, we both went to PWI, right, predominantly white institution, got an education, were able to further our whatever from that experience, right? Now, the institution wasn't set up for me. Totally understand. However, did it stop me from getting a degree? No. And so if I've, and we have our own institutions as well, as far as collegiate institutions. So in terms of that, like, I can complain, and I guess to get back to the grocery store analogy, I can complain about what's in the grocery store, or I can build my own grocery store. I'm just in the mindset of building my own grocery store. If I don't like something, I'm gonna create the environment that's conducive to what it is that I want for myself and for my family and my community. Like, at the end of the day, that's all I have control over. If I don't like what I see, if I don't like what's being offered, if I don't like how things are set up, I have the ability to create my own. We say we made in the image of God. He's a creator. So doesn't that make us creators too? So what's stopping us from creating the reality that we want, even in a society that's not set up for us?
I think that's
I have an answer to that question too.
And that's, I want to jump in before you answer, but and I think that is a critical point of what we're talking about here. When we're talking about, economic empowerment and utilizing that power, one of the answers that I shared with my friend earlier this week was that one of the forces that we as a people and community are working against is that we don't have the systems of power of economic, social, economic, power, influence, and responsibility and accountability, et cetera, to enforce our own communal agenda, right? We can do that individually from a home within the confines of the structures and systems and laws that we work with. But as a community, as a nation of people, we're still figuring that piece out, right? We're still figuring out how to, we've had Black Wall Street, we've had Tulsa, and we've had places where outer forces, things were out of our control, came in and destroyed what we created. Now, it may have created well, who knows what it created? It still inspired us to pursue those examples in this day and age, right? That we're still looking to build those sort of marketplaces and systems of education that's going to continue to benefit us as a family and group of people, right? Having our own, law enforcement and community, working within the system, but to create one that works best for us, right? Working with the tools and resources that we have. So, Maurice, you can go ahead with your point. That was my point, is that we do have, the power to change things. In the climate and how things are operating, we recognize that maybe we don't have all of those systems and power in place, or maybe we're not as connected, as united. And this is from a 5,000 foot view, right? Like there are pockets of people. Like we're building a mastermind group here because we're trying to create another pocket where we're doing those things that we want, right? That we have the education, that we have the economics, and that we have those things that we can offer to our families, to our community, to eliminate the obstacles that we've encountered or those that came before us.
And just real quick, Maurice, to kind of piggyback on his point about the grocery store, if we focus more on what we don't want than what we want, we're gonna leave the grocery store with chicken and turkey, and that ain't what we went in there for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like my attention needs to be focused on what it is that I want and what it is that I need, not on what I don't want and what I I work in construction, so I'm a minority in terms of being a woman in construction, and I'm a minority in terms of my nationality, right? I'm in a room with typically all European men, and I'm still able to, at the end of the day, do what I'm supposed to do in terms of my job. Like, it doesn't hinder me. Yes, there is sexism. Yes, there is prejudice, right? But I know at the end of the day, you can't dispute facts, right? I don't try to get emotional about they don't like me, they, crossing their, whatever, right? Like, however they feel about me being in a room. I've been thrown off of a job site because a person didn't like what I had to say. They were willing to accept the same comment from the owner of the company, but like, so what? Like, I can't control that. So it ain't worth me getting emotional, or I can't control him, and it doesn't impact me getting the job done. How he feel about me is irrelevant. The job still need to get done. And I think when people start to see more of, we want the same thing, right? People want to be able to live their lives with a certain level of freedom, with a certain level of respect and equity. Everybody wants that.
We want to be able to raise our children in a peaceful environment, educate them possibly. I agree. Everybody wants those things. I would think.
And we want to be able to make mistakes and it not cost us our lives.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the major conversation, is that, the victims of these killings, they made some mistakes. They made some poor choices. However, they weren't the only ones who made poor choices. Yet some may lose their livelihood, but not their life. That whole families are affected. And there's so much to that. And I think a pattern of that being a part of our history is something to pay attention to in the grocery store, right? I put that in quotes. It's like you walk in the grocery store and, they're charging you more than most people or other people walking out of there, or they're taking, a third of what you buy and they're putting it back, right? Or giving it to somebody else. Like, you're gonna speak up about that, right?
Yeah, but that ain't happening to me.
And it may not be happening to you individually.
I'm gonna stop going to that grocery store.
Well, let me just
Yeah,
let me just put something in perspective real quick with this grocery store analogy, since we keep referring back to it. The grocery store in that analogy represents the world.
Yeah.
Now we live now watch this. Again, we ain't talking about what we want to be. We're talking about what is. So here's a fact. We live in a world of duality. And what that means is we live in a world of extreme contrast. All the good, all the love that you want to see and find in the world is available. Absolutely. All of the hate and all of the heinous acts that you would ever want to see is also available. All the turkey and pork that you want to see is available. And all of the fish that you want is available. All I'm saying with that is there are things in the grocery store that I need, and there are things in the grocery store that I don't need. There are things in this world that I want, or in the grocery store that I want, and there are things in the grocery store that I don't want. So using the grocery store analogy, I feel like my job when I go in the grocery store is to only go in and give attention to the things that I need that's going to allow me to be able to cook the cake that I want to in my house. I got no need to go out and bring a dish in my house that I don't need. I got no need to go out and bring an event into my world that I don't need, which actually addresses one of the reasons why I was a little bit leery about having this conversation. I mean, y'all know that already. Because again, it's like, all right, you know, my job is to focus on what I want. My job is to get what I need. I don't go to the grocery store and bring stuff home that I don't need. And it's kind of like, again, here's one of those things that's going to kind of come across as unpopular, but it's got to be somebody that agree with this. I don't know about fighting battles that are addressing things that I've never had to deal with. So I know that my people deal with this system, but it's difficult to fight a battle that you really, you know what I'm saying? Like you really you know,
you're not invested.
I mean,
and
I don't
experience.
know. I don't know if you can even say it that way. I mean, that's proper. Me and you on the same page. But you know, man, when my son passed away a while ago, y'all know that. And when he did, the outpouring from this European community that I live in right now was amazing. It absolutely was amazing. You know what I mean? It really was. Yeah, it was crazy.
I spoke at his funeral. Yeah.
The support that this community, this European community showed me. You know, Maurice's best friend, which was a European, donated $1,000 when he passed away to me. Right? Like his one 15-year-old friend. This says a lot. 15 and a European able to donate $1,000 to his friend in the name of his friend. You know what I mean? That says a whole lot, you know. But I'm just saying that the outpouring of love that I received from this community right here, if I ever had a problem with Europeans, the way that this community responded would make me second guess that.
Absolutely.
It really would. This community was amazing. Also, man, when I was in the sales business, you know, I mean, this is to me why I think, you know, some of us, maybe not in this conversation, but some of us focus a little bit too much on racism or people being racist. You know, I can't tell you how many Kirby's that I sold to people that were clearly racist. I knocked on their door. They let me in the house. They got Confederate flags on the wall. They got a picture of Robert E. Lee. They got Jefferson Davis on the wall. You can hear it in their lingo. You know that they stand for those Confederate values. I can't tell you how many people let me into their house like that and bought Kirby's from me. So that taught me it's not about whether a person likes me or not. I don't care if you're a racist. I just care if you treat me with respect. That's all I care about. That's all I care about. You know, and when you look at it that way, you touched on this point a minute ago, Bakar, you know, you can get treated bad by your own people. You can get disrespected by your own people. You know, so I just think all of this factors in, man. I really do think that all of this is factors in when you choose what fights, what battles you want to fight. You know what I'm saying? When you saying, okay, it's so many things in this world to focus on. What do I focus on? Like I said, I'm thinking that my objective, like I said, it's plenty of negative, bad, hateful things in the world, and they're always gonna be, because this is a plane of dualities. You can't have manifestation without having positive and negatives, right? So whether it's the system killing Asiatic people, or people starving in Darfur, or you know what I mean, whatever it is, it's always going to be that extremely negative aspect. You know, a part of being a creator is having the ability to look at the imperfections in something and say, I want to make it better. That's part of the benefit of being a creator. So you're always going to be in an environment where you are able to tap in to that. You know what I mean?
That's
So
a great
there's a lot
pivot point.
to it, man.
That's a great pivot point. And I think that's one of the things that we here to stand for and represent is making a shift, making a pivot to being in a mindset where we're creating solutions for the challenges that we see in our lives. You know, there's a reason that we are creative entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Recognize that what creative are those who create. Entrepreneurs are people who get things done. All right. That we're creatively getting things done because we don't see, you know, the obstacles per se. We recognize that there are challenges, but we expect them. Right. And we're creatively coming up with solutions and building a community around, you know, family, around economic empowerment, around, you know, love, healthy principles, health and wealth. I know that's one of my Jita's, you know, strong themes, self-determination and coaching and mentoring, as well as financial independence, other themes.
I was just going to say,
thoughts?
like, growth, change does not happen without adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to your point, like, we expect it. Like, that's just life. Like, stuff is going to happen in life to test, to help you to grow. You don't grow when everything's going, you know, when everybody's content, when everything's on the up and up, stock market's going up. Like, ain't nobody thinking about it. You know, ain't nobody thinking about changing because everything good. But when things aren't good, it causes people, right? Now everybody wants to start a business. Now everybody want to support their own. And it's things that we could have been doing all along. But
That's
something outside of us is causing us to now pay more attention to it. Because we realize that, all right, like if we don't do this, we're going to stay in the same condition. So there's more attention being given to, but there are people who are already doing those things. And so, you know, when I look at some of the corporations and companies that are giving more attention to the movement and all that kind of stuff, making donations, you know, kudos to them, you know, good for them. But don't confuse pacification with progress. Like,
bars.
That ain't,
don't confuse pacification with progress. I like that.
Because that's still something outside of you appeasing you so that you don't take ownership. Like, we shouldn't look for that appeasement. We should look for a stimulus check in order to stay afloat. Like, something's got to change because there are people who don't need those concessions. So why not us? Why we have to have an exception? You know, and it's not it's not that we don't acknowledge what has occurred in this country, but when you look at the ancestors in our country, the people who have fought, and this is why, and I know I'm a plug them because I've gained so much from them. This is why I love the movement that ET and Associates has, because their attention has always been focused on their community.
Yeah,
they've experienced racism. They've experienced, you know, mistreatment from police officers. They know they can't control that. What they can control is helping to educate and inform their community about things that they can do differently, so that they don't have to subject themselves to that moving forward. You know, like, it's not going to change overnight. But what do we have most control over? Ourselves, and those of us who we can lock arms with and who we have a common bond with. We can control that more so than we can forces outside of us. So why give attention to the forces outside of you instead of, you know what, I see the system, right? And this is just, for example, like, I see the system of financial education and literacy, right? I know where it got me. So, you know, reflection would just say, all right, this sucks, right? You go to school, you get good grades, so you get a good job, so you can work for somebody for the rest of your life, and you barely make ends meet, and you can just get by. Like, don't nobody want that, but most people accept it and aren't willing to do anything different to change it. All right, as a mother, I know what led me to that point. So I'm intentionally doing something different so that doesn't have to be the future for my children. And I'm sharing that with people that I come in contact with so that doesn't have to be the future for their families. Because I know that you can change. I know you can pivot. I know you can position yourself so that that doesn't continue to be the story for our families and our communities. It's just information. And we all have access to information. It's just what we're doing with it. It's the information that we give attention to. Like everybody on TikTok, I'm not knocking it, but like, how is that furthering or anything? Like, how is that helping you to grow? How is that helping you and your family? You know,
and I'm sure there's some social media experts who could tell you.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't even like her on it. She 5. All right, you need to entertain yourself or whatever. But I'm constantly speaking to her about, all right, instead of you being on your phone, won't you learn how to use your phone?
Well, she's 5, so
I understand, but like,
it has to be taught some of that. But yeah,
you still got to plant the seeds, right? The harvest may not come right away, but if I start having conversations now, when she's 16, she ain't gonna hear. She gonna still be on her phone and not using it. I want her by the time she's 16 to understand, look, this is how mommy has been using her phone since I was 5, since I was 3, to enhance her life. So let me learn how to do that instead of being TikTok famous. She say stuff like that. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, be famous for real.
Wait, your 5-year-old says that? I need to have a conversation with her.
That's the outside.
Yeah.
But those are the influences that if I leave it to society to educate her, that's what she's going to get. Be a YouTube star, be TikTok famous, live a life of luxury and not have to do no work, and somebody else will take care of you. It's still that same foundational principle that we talked about earlier. We're still psychologically, most of America wants to live a life of luxury and not have to put in the work. It don't mean everybody got to work sun up to sundown, sweating out in some cotton field to get work done. You got to invest more in yourself, right? And investment in what Benjamin Franklin said, investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So invest in yourself. Invest in the things that's going to help you to grow and get better. Because that's what you have control over. And nobody can stop you from learning.
I like that. I think that's a great note to end on. Unless you got any final thoughts, but investment in knowledge pays the best interest. I love that. I mean, I feel like that's what we're about here. Is investing in not only acquiring knowledge though, but applying knowledge.
I got something I want to say before you close out.
Yeah.
I don't really need to say. I just want to ask y'all: have y'all seen 846?
Yes.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
solid. Hey, what's up, Evan? Ty here and Yvette, those that were still rocking with us. Hey, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us tonight. Spirited conversation, and I like that we weren't all on one note, but by the end of it, you know, we are creators and make our own. And I mean, that's what we're all about here. This has been the Seer Mastermind Group and our podcast, Our Story, Our Journey, Our Way with Bakar Bey, Maurice, and Majida. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Check out the podcast when it goes on YouTube over the weekend. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.